Hi, how's it going?
Great, thanks. And you?
I'm doing good. Thank you for taking the time to do this interview. Apologies on my end, as I was having some technical issues over on my side with my recording software, but I think I got it working now.
No problems. We're a bit lucky here because I had another interview scheduled at 7, but that one was cancelled, so we have time until 7:30.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Well, of course, we're here to talk about the brand new album from Evocation, the Shadow Archetype, which comes out March 10th through Metal Blade. How did you guys approach this album this time around?
We was quite a bit different approach to this album compared to previous albums. For instance, I think on the Illusions album, Illusions of Grandeur, which we released in 2012, we had long talks about how in what direction we should take the album. But on this album, we just said that just fuck everything and just go with the flow, so to speak. We just did what came into our minds and what we just wanted to do, and after that we started to filter things out that we didn't think fitted for the album. So it was a very open-minded creative process for this album, I would say.
And how did that feel, taking that approach? I mean, did it feel like a welcome change to take the writing process in that style?
Yeah, because as I remember the previous albums, some of those albums were quite hard to write, but this one came very easily, and it was a very easy and smooth process because since me and Simon, who wrote the music for the album, we also shared the same visions and thoughts about how we wanted this album to be. And when we had that free, open-minded creative process, it was just a pleasure all the time writing this album. And I can't really remember that all the previous albums have been such a pleasure to write, but this one was really quite easy and smooth, and I really appreciated that.
Yeah, and I feel that always makes for the best albums too, when everything's firing on all cylinders, everyone's on the same page, and they just want to make the music that they want to make.
Yeah, and when we speak about the last album, the Illusions of Grandeur album, when I go back to that one a bit, I feel like it's a bit too polished and a bit too overproduced, and I think this album became a sort of reaction towards that. We wanted to go in a more brutal, more technical direction, and just back to the roots, so to speak, with death metal again, and I'm really, really proud of the outcome of the album and the creative process behind it. We spent 2 years writing the album, the songs. But we had all the time in the world to write this album. There wasn't any, time limits or anything like that, because we were switching record labels to Metal Blade, and after Century Media, we didn't have a new record label. So we just said that, we will take the time, whatever time it will take in order to write the perfect album. So yeah, it took 2 years and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears to write all those tracks for the album, and I couldn't be more happy with the outcome of it.
Yeah, and that's definitely gotta help when you have that free time to be able to work on the album and not feel any pressure like that. I mean, I imagine going through different labels was already a bit of a struggle, and it's good that you didn't have to worry so much about making sure that you hit a deadline to get an album out.
Yeah, and also, Evocation is not the daytime job for the members either. We have ordinary daytime jobs, so we don't have to make an album every second year in order to pay the bills and so on, and that's a really, for me at least, it is a great pleasure to have it that way, because we don't have that pressure on pleasing anybody or anything, or we somehow, how do you say, with the creative process, you don't have to please somebody with the creative process. You can do exactly what you like and just say fuck you to everybody, and that's a great freedom for us, which I think many of the bands that live off their music and have it as their daytime jobs, they don't have that pleasure as we do. We can, for us, death metal and evocation is just a passion, and we can quit anytime, any day that we feel that it's not fun anymore. For us, it's just for the passion.
Yeah, and I'm glad to see that the passion is still there. I mean, you can definitely hear it in the new album. And I do appreciate that raw approach. I mean, even though I did love the last album with that polished sound, I really appreciate what you guys are doing on this album this time around for those reasons. Just going back to those early days, just getting that raw technical feel. It's really cool.
Yeah. And there are also a bit new stuff on this album as well, which I think probably also have noticed. Simon, the new guitar player in the band, he is 13 years younger than I am, and but I've known him since he was a small kid because his father is my cousin and so on. And I might also probably be the reason why he got into the extreme metal scene in the first place. But Simon, he's a new generation death metal freak, and he's very much into the new school death metal with a lot of technicality, brutality, and bands like Decapitated, Behemoth, and that kind of bands, Cannibal Corpse, and so on. And he brought that part into Evocation, and I'm, more of an old school death metal guy, liking, the old classic death metal bands like Bolt Thrower, KROCKS, Entombed, and At the Gates, and so on. And somehow we just mixed or merged those two worlds together, and I think it merged very well and became a really beautiful creation in the Shadow Archetype. I couldn't be more happy with the outcome.
Yeah, I was definitely going to say that as well, because especially with, now that I know that it was Simon that was bringing in those aspects of some of the newer death metal bands, I mean, it's great to see the old feel of the band with a somewhat new approach and just having that creativity there to just go a little more in a different direction, but keeping that core sound.
Yeah. And it turned out really great, and I know, for instance, our old members Janne and Vesa, who left the band now 3 years ago, they have also been. They're still very good friends with the band and all of us, and we hang out a lot together with them, and they have been very curious about the album's progress and so on, and they have been listening to the demo tracks and the finished album and so on, and all along the way they just said that, wow, this sounds like something new and fresh, but it still sounds like Evocation. There's still Evocation in the sound, but there is a new element in the new album, and they really liked it, and it turned out really cool, I think.
So along with that, what have the fans been saying so far about the singles that you've released?
So far, the comments that I have read are very, very positive. I've seen they're writing that it's darker and more evil, more death metal, more back to the roots. I have almost only read positive comments about the new tracks, and people also wrote that it's a different direction compared to Illusion, and I think most of the people also appreciate that as well. I mean, Illusions was a great experiment and great fun to do as well, but right now we want to do something else, and I don't think it's any meaning in doing the same album twice. I mean, if you look back on our back catalog with the previous albums, you can see that all the albums have their own identity. They are not the same, and they have their own sort of feel, and that's also what Evocation is about, to do something new, but still within the boundaries of death metal.
Oh yeah, and that's what's important too. I mean, you want to make sure you keep that core sound of what people know you for, but being able to go into different directions and discover new territory and discover what works for you as a band.
Yeah, definitely. And it's sometimes a bit difficult as well, to explore new things within death metal, because I mean the boundaries are quite, it's not a big area where you can go around and experiment within until you go outside the boundaries of what is death metal. And so it is a very big and difficult challenge to make a new album every time and make it sound different. But I think we managed to do it this time around again. But who knows if we can do it again in the future? I don't know. But it's always great fun to do the albums, I think.
So how did the recording process come about? Did you change up your setup at all when it came to this new album?
Yeah, the recording. What did you say there last?
I mean, like your guitar setup. Did you change anything from previous albums?
On the Illusions album, on that one we did a bit of change. We actually didn't use the HM2 pedal on that album, but on this album we decided to go back to the HM2 pedal again, the Boss, the classic Boss HM2 pedal, which makes the Swedish death metal sound. But on this album we used the exact same setup with pedals as we have used on the Tales from the Tomb album. No, wait a minute. On the Tales from the Tomb album we had a different setting, but from Dead Come Chaos and Apocalyptic, and on this album we have had the same setup, and it's the Boss HM2 pedal, but also together with the Boss MT2, the Metal Zone pedal. Because if you only use the Boss HM2 pedal, then you will get a very fuzzy guitar sound, like the Entombed albums and so on. But you will not have a distinctive punch, and that I think makes the sound, if you want to have a bit more, thrashier death metal riffs, you won't hear the guitar picking if you have only the HM2 pedal. It will just become a big fuzzy tone, and that's why we also use the Boss MT2 pedal, the Metal Zone, to tighten up the sound again after you get the fuzziness from the HM2 pedal. And then that's the exact same setup as well as At the Gates used on their classical album Slaughter of the Soul. I've learned from Anders, who's a friend of mine. That's a winning concept, I think. I love the guitar sound you get from that, and those two pedals are the secret behind it. But then we also use the PV5150 Mark II guitar amp and make it go through a guitar cabinet with greenback elements. I really like the greenback elements. They make a tight sound, but yet yet a bit forgiving sound, which I think makes Swedish death metal with a lot of tremolo riffs sound very, very good. There is another guitar cabinet element named Vintage 30s, but that one is, I think, more towards the thrashier guitar sound, and I'm not really. Evocation has not. We have a lot of tremolo riffs, and I think the greenback elements work a lot better together with that. So that's why we use the greenback elements. That's sort of how we got the guitar sound, but. And I can also say that we worked a lot with the guitar side. I don't think we have ever worked this much in order to get the perfect guitar tone as we have done on this album. As a guitar player, you are always hunting for the perfect guitar tone, and on this album, I think we got as close as possible to the perfect guitar tone. We worked, I think, 4 weeks in order to get the perfect guitar tone. We actually set a guitar tone first, but after we recorded 2 or 3 tracks with that guitar sound, I felt that there's something missing in this guitar tone, and we just tore it down and started over from the beginning. And then a week later, we felt that we got the right guitar tone. And in the end, I think it was worth all those 4 weeks in order to get that perfect guitar tone. I think it's very important to have the perfect guitar tone on an album.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, not a problem. Yeah, I was wondering about the guitar setup because I absolutely love the tone on the new album. I mean, it does have that throwback to the early days of Swedish death metal, but it has that newer feel to it as well. It just feels like a great combination that you guys discovered, and the fact that it took 4 weeks to be able to do that just shows how much dedication that you have to wanting to get the right tone.
Absolutely. And I have a funny anecdote to tell about my guitar tone, actually. I'm really proud of the guitar tone I found, and it has taken many years, of tryouts and to get the perfect guitar tone. And I remember in 2009 we were on our first European tour together with Cannibal Corpse as a headliner, and I remember on the first club, we had played 2 festivals together first with them, and when you play festivals, you don't really meet all the bands that much and hang out with them. But on the first club show, I remember when we were up and doing the sound check. All of a sudden, Pat O'Brien from Cannibal Corpse was standing right next to me, and I've just, before that, I had just, said hi to him in some corridor or something like that. Just, waved at him and said hi, and all of a sudden, Pat was standing next to me and started talking to me, and he's a really awesome, nice guy, but he's a bit, shy, and doesn't approach that many people, but all of a sudden he was standing there next to me and said, "Hey man, I love your guitar tone." Okay, yeah, wow, cool. And after that, we spent hours and hours and hours and hours on that tour just talking about guitar tones and other bullshit, and he just loved my setup, and it ended up with him taking photos of the exact settings that I had on my guitar amp and all the pedals I used and so on. And he asked me if it was okay that he used it on some of his future projects or anything like that. And I said, yeah, sure, I would be really proud if you used that. Would be really cool. And we got off on a really good foot there, and have a really good friendship up to this day as well. Every time Cannibal Corpse are in our nearby area here playing a show, we always come to their shows, and they always invite us to their to hang out backstage and drink beers and just hang out with them and have a good time, and I really appreciate that.
That's incredible. I mean, again, that shows the importance of guitar tone. I mean, even when it doesn't come to just guitar, I mean, you can make some really great friendships that come out of it, especially from it all.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I remember Alex Webster also told me afterwards that hey, Marko, just so you know that Pat doesn't usually, go talking to a lot of people. He's a bit shy, but you should really take this as it's really, how do you say? It's something you should be really proud of, that he loves your guitar tone, and I know that for a fact that he really, really means it. Yeah. So that was fun.
Oh yeah, very much so. So, going back to that time when you were on your first European run with Cannibal Corpse up to now, how would you feel that death metal has changed in the last 8 years? At least from your perspective.
There are a lot more death metal bands, and I think the death metal scene at the moment is quite revitalized, I would say. There are lots of death metal bands, lots of old school death metal bands and new school death metal bands. I think the scene is thriving. What do you say? It's really vital at the moment, and I'm really glad about that. And there are lots of exciting new death metal bands coming out. I just saw there was one really exciting project, death metal project here in Sweden that started out with previous At the Gates members, with At the Gates members, The Lurking Fear. Have you noticed that band?
I've heard the name, but it's I'm not sure if they've released any material yet or not. But I'm very much looking forward to what they have going on as a project.
Yeah, it's Thomas from At the Gates, and I think it was Adrian also from At the Gates, and was some God Macabre member as well, I think, and I think that should be quite, for me that sounds very interesting, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what they can put out. And yeah, so I think the death metal scene is as vital as it has ever been before, and it's great to see. But there are, of course, old death metal bands as well that are retiring. Bolt Thrower just for a couple of months ago retired, and yeah, there will probably also be more bands that are retiring. But there is a good growth of new bands coming into the scene, and I'm really glad to see that.
Yeah, me too. I mean, as sad as it is that some of the olden day death metal bands are starting to retire, like Bolt Thrower. That one really hit me when they announced their retirement. But the good things about that is the original music is still there to be able to listen to and enjoyed, and there's always going to be new bands that are inspired by that sound to either try to replicate that sound or take that sound into their own innovation. Yeah,
definitely. And there are lots of new death metal bands that really has the spirit of the early 90s going on today, and yeah, makes me really proud and glad to see that there are new bands that are interested in the early 90s scene, and with the young kids as well, you know, that are interested in the early 90s scene. I remember when we did our first release party show from our first reunion album, you know, Tales from the Tomb, back in 2007. There was this young kid coming up to me, you know, I don't know, early 20s or something like that, and said that, and he knew the exact history of the early 90s death metal scene, and could, you know, name all the, you know, famous bands of the early 90s and demo bands and so on, and it was really, really, really well read up on the history of the death metal scene. And wow, I was just so impressed and glad to see that there are youth and kids that are interested in what happened back in the early 90s, and that the scene is alive.
Yeah, and I'm glad to see that too. I mean, as fun as it is to really go and explore the technical aspects of death metal, there's nothing better, at least to me, than that original sound of death metal where you have like the great melody and groove behind it while still keeping that brutality going, and just that overall passion that the 90s death metal scene has.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for me at least, I really appreciate, you know, the bands that incorporate both the melodies and the brutality, and for Evocation that has always been a vital part to have incorporate both those sides, both melodies and brutality, and melodies for me have to be very, very melancholic in order for me to like them. I can't stand happy tunes, you know. Whenever I hear a fucking love song, I just want to say, shut the fuck up, you know. And when the melodies become that melancholic and sad that I feel I could slit my wrists to them, then I feel that we have hit the right note. And I often said that to boys, that yeah, now we're there. Now that's the melody I want to hear. And I don't know if you read the bio about in the bio I wrote that my, you know, the reason why I like all those melancholic melodies is that I have Finnish ancestry. My parents are from Finland, and when they came to Sweden back in the in the 60s, there was a huge shortage of jobs in Finland, and Finland was quite poor after the Second World War, and there were big shortage of jobs. But in Sweden, the working market was thriving, and there was plenty of jobs, so they moved here and was working all year round, and in the summertime they went back to Finland to meet their relatives, and because they missed Finland, and of course when you lived here in Sweden they were missing Finland, and to cope with that sense of missing of Finland, they were playing a lot of Finnish melancholic folk music and so on, and I was also listening to that in my home, and that colored what my preferences as well now in the album, and I think it's also what comes out in Evocation's music as well, with the melancholic tunes, and and I really love that. It's the melancholic stuff really hit something deep inside of me.
Oh, yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, when, especially here in the new album too, since we are talking about that, and of course promoting it for coming out March 10th, but when those melancholic moments really do hit at the right spots, it really does give that dark feeling, and in an odd sense, that is a great feeling as well, to be able to feel those kind of emotions through those dark melancholic moments.
Yeah, and for me, writing music has always been like a therapeutic process as well. When you feel anger, or you're frustrated about something, and you go into the rehearsal room together with the boys and rehearse death metal for a couple of hours, and all that frustration, all that anger has just rinsed off. It's just gone. And in the same process, you have also perhaps written a new musical piece, a new track, or just done some great sounding riffs, and or some melancholic stuff. And so for me, it's a very therapeutic process. Rinse away all that anger and frustration, and in that process you create something beautiful, melancholic, death metal, or whatever comes out, and I just love that, and it's so much more creative, instead of, I mean, there are lots of people who handle their anger and frustration and in very destructive ways, going into drug abuse, or punching being aggressive towards other people or something like that. But this is a very, I think, constructive way of dealing with frustration and anger and so on.
Yeah, and it's definitely that way for the listener as well. I mean, there are so many songs out there across the world that are just overly happy, always about being excited, being in love, or going to parties, or all of that stuff. But that's not relatable to everybody. Sometimes the dark elements are really what are relatable to life. And when you hear others make music that reflect those emotions, it can get very personal, and you can get really attached to it because it is so relatable.
Absolutely, I totally agree. I remember several years ago, back in 2003, I think it was, I was studying to become a psychologist at the Gothenburg University, and I had a close relative of mine who died, killed himself, and in that process of dealing with that grief after hearing that he had killed himself, I was listening a lot to Queens of the Stone Age, actually, and the track "Go with the Flow," and that track somehow helped me cope with those feelings, and helped me go through that experience. And every time now that I listen to that track, "Go with the Flow," I always remember my cousin, and it also gives me a good feeling that, and I think I hope he's in a better place, and it just helped me get through that those tough emotions and so on.
Yeah.
So I can really relate to that. Some music can help you go through anger, frustration, and sorrow as well.
Have you ever heard anyone either at a show or online or anything who says that evocation helped them through hard times?
To be honest, I can't remember right now. There might have been some, but at least I've heard people saying, to me that your music matters. It gives me something in life, but I can't really remember. Just straight up, if somebody has told me that it has helped them go through something, terrible or something with grief or anything like that.
Well, again, I mean, whether it is for the grief-stricken or just the full enjoyment of your music. I mean, it's great to see that after you guys come back and, been like steadily making some amazing albums since reforming again, and of course with the new album as well coming out March 10th. I mean, it really feels like you guys are keeping that inspiration going, keeping that music that you want to play going, and keeping the spirits of the old school death metal, the new elements that are now a part of the band, and just keeping everything going in the metal world the way that it should be.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I hope that we will be able to continue and keep that torch and flame up high, with the band. I guess at the moment nobody knows if there will be another Evocation album after this, because we are only doing this as long as it's fun, and at the moment this is great fun and we really love it, and I couldn't be more happy that we are again releasing a great album, and but who knows how we will feel in a couple of years. I don't know. There might be other things in life that are more important, and so. But at the moment, we're just trying to go with the flow and just enjoy the moment as it is, and just be satisfied with the album that we have made. And as I said earlier, lots of blood, sweat, and tears put into this album, and I think that we can, in 10 years from now, be really proud of what we achieved with this album, and I'm just really, really proud of what we achieved with the album.
Yeah, and I can definitely say, as a fan of the band, this feels like one of the strongest albums from Evocation, and I really hope everyone does go check it out on March 10th through Metal Blade, because it is one of those albums that I think is very impactful in its style, and I think once people get to check it out, I think they'll feel the same way.
Wow, thank you. Thanks a lot for those kind words. I hope that Evocation fans will feel the same way as well, as and feel the enthusiasm in the same enthusiasm as we feel about the album, and when you look at the comments so far, I think your view on the album is also shared by the people that are familiar with Evocation's music before, and I hope that we will also gain a lot of new fans as well that are that want to look into Evocation and see what we are all about, and I also hope that Evocation will be able to play new territories as well with this album. I mean, for instance, we haven't ever played in the US before, and I really hope that we will be able to play the US on this album. It would be a great experience. I would love to come and meet people over in the US as well.
Yeah, being from the US, I would definitely love to be able to see you guys live. I mean, I think you guys would go over very well, especially if you get on the right tour and the right dates and everything just lines up perfectly. Yeah,
that would be awesome. But when it comes to touring, I know that for Evocation, it is, as I spoke earlier about, we're not a band that lives off the music. When it comes to touring, that, I would say, is the only downside of being a band that's not living off the music, because there are so much more factors that need to work out if you want to go on a tour that's 4 or 5 or for 6 weeks, because we have daytime jobs which we need to be away from, and you have to have permission from the daytime job to be away such a long period of time. Bills have to be paid here at home, and you have to be away from families. And at the moment, we're two of the guys, me and Simon, we have kids and families that we need to be away from in a long period of time. And in that sense, you also have to be a bit more picky about which band to tour with. If we would get opportunity to go out on tour with, for instance, Hammerfall or Sabaton, it just wouldn't make sense because their crowd would probably not be so interested in a death metal band. The audience is quite different with a power metal band than a death metal crowd, So yeah, it makes it a bit more difficult for us to come out on tours. But festivals and weekend shows is definitely not a problem. But touring is a bit more difficult, and that's why we also haven't done so many tours in the years. We've done 2.5 European tours, I think, and then we've done a lot of festivals and some club shows as well. But yeah, that's the situation.
And speaking of that, mentioning that you do have a family, how did they feel about Evocation? I mean, do they enjoy the music that you play?
My girlfriend, she likes it, but I know she's more into, she likes more hard rock music, like from the 70s, 80s, and so on, but not so much into extreme metal. But yeah, she says that she likes Evocation, but I know she's more oriented towards a bit more softer music. And my kids, they more kind of like ordinary music for kids and so on. Child music, not so much into death metal or extreme metal music. I think they usually say that, "Oh, please put on something else, Dad. We don't want to listen to this." So I haven't managed to brainwash the man yet.
One day.
One day, yeah.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you so very much for taking the time to do this interview. I got so very excited when I saw the opportunity to be able to talk to you about the brand new album, The Shadow Archetype, which is coming out on March 10th through Metal Blade. And I'm glad that I was able to get everything working on my side to actually make the interview happen. And again, thank you for taking the time to do this. And before we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to mention that I haven't brought up yet?
New video coming out 1st of March for one of the tracks on the album. So yeah, look out for that. And yeah, final words. I would like to say that please come and if we come to the US, yeah, we would be very happy if people would come and check us out.